Welcome to the Rise Above Project. I'm your host, Joe Perroni. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, champion bodybuilder, and I've been a personal trainer for about 30 years. This podcast is about helping people with their emotional, spiritual, and physical fitness. I value strength, toughness, and truth. I despise complacency, the victim mentality, and following the herd. If you find my work to be valuable, please subscribe to my channel and tell a friend. Today's talk is called Great People Suffer Greatly, a Guide to Moving Forward. I want to start off today with a story. November of 1978, I was 14 years old. It was a rainy day and I was at Baldwin Junior High School. We weren't allowed outside for lunch, so we stayed in the cafeteria. We ended up spending the lunch hour having arm wrestling contests, and the last match I had ended up with me breaking my elbow as I was slamming the other guy's hand down to the table. I'm not sure you could call that a victory. In ancient times, it may have been described as a Pyrrhic victory, meaning a victory gained at too great a cost, because I won in the short term, but I earned myself 6 weeks in a cast, rehab, and 6 months without weight training. I would be ready for football in August, but I needed physical activity. 6 months was too long to feel like I was getting small, puny, and worthless. That was an absolute eternity. After feeling sorry for myself for a little while, I decided to figure out what I could do to challenge myself. I read that running a 26.2-mile marathon was a great accomplishment, and that it is the ultimate experience to push and overcome your personal, physical, and emotional pain barriers. A major selling point to me was that the first marathon commemorated the 25-mile run of a Greek soldier who died after announcing the defeat of the Persians. That's the kind of challenge I wanted. I wanted to prove that I was more fit than a Greek soldier, and I didn't even need my arm to participate. In addition, I don't believe in Pyrrhic victories. I don't spend too much time on what was lost when I have the opportunity to gain something else. I was one of the captains of Baldwin's undefeated county championship team in 7th grade, but I wanted to participate in the Long Island Marathon. Quitting the team gave me the appropriate time to prepare for the race, and it seemed like the right decision. Training for the 440 like I did the previous year, which is only one time around the track, wouldn't be enough. And I have to thank my mom for not being one of those helicopter moms, because I wasn't exactly prepared for my new challenge. In December, I started my first day of training. It was cold, and I had to manage the snow and the ice. To make matters worse, I still had my arm in a cast, and the sling made me feel extremely unbalanced. I never considered the danger of falling. I averaged 6 miles per day, Monday through Friday, and 12 miles on Saturday and Sunday. When May 6th, 1979 arrived, I felt like I was ready to finish the race, which was my number one goal. I wasn't too worried about my time, but I did want to perform to the best of my ability. This was the height of the running craze, so there were about 20,000 people in the race. The world-class runners and people who had a legitimate chance to win started at the front of the pack. Undoubtedly, they earned this position by way of previous successful performances. And not unexpectedly, 14-year-old boys who are running their first marathon, they start somewhere in the back of the pack. In 1979, the marathon timing chip hadn't been invented yet, which meant that at the time the race started, the timer started. Now, with the marathon timing chip, which wasn't utilized until the 1990s, the timer starts when the individual passes the starting line. This is an extremely important consideration. First consideration, there were roughly 20,000 people in the race, all lined up on the same street, and starting the race at the same time. This means that those in front of the pack crossed the starting line immediately or within seconds of the official start of the race. People like me in the back of the pack didn't even know that the race had started. Picture waiting for the amount of people that could sell out Madison Square Garden to make their way down the street far enough for you to pass the starting line. Needless to say, it took me about 20 minutes before I took my first step past the starting line. If someone were averaging 7 minutes per mile, they would have gotten a 3-mile head start on me. Second consideration. The runners who started near the starting line ran the equivalent of an official 26.2-mile marathon. However, those in the back of the pack ran up to an extra mile to a mile and a half, which technically would be a 27.5-mile marathon, which is longer than what is expected of an Olympic athlete, and 2.5 miles longer than what killed the Greek soldier. It's also interesting to note that a runner in a race with 20,000 other people could start at the front of the pack, be passed by 9,000 people, and still finish in the first half of the group. A runner who starts near the back of the pack can pass 9,000 people, which can be done if a person passes 346 people per mile, which means passing one person every 15 feet without allowing anybody to pass them. And they need to do this for 26 miles in a row. If they do that, they will still complete the race in the back half of the group. To say it another way, a runner in the front of the group can lose 9,000 places, and the runner in the back can gain 9,000 places, and both could pass the finish line in almost the same exact place. Strange but true. What is the point of this story that took place almost 40 years ago to the day? Why am I talking about this, and why should anybody care? I learned many life lessons from this experience, and I'd like to share them. If it has any value for you, then that would be great. If not, then don't pay attention to it. But ask yourself this. In your life, where was your starting line? Were you born into a rich family or a poor family? Did you have two parents that loved you? Did you have parents who hated each other and stayed together anyway? Or maybe they did get divorced. Did you have an alcoholic parent? Or maybe a parent who never wanted to be a parent? Were you raised by a grandparent or maybe by the state? Were you smart enough, pretty enough, lean enough, athletic enough, tall enough, handsome enough, talented enough? Were you bullied? Did you have friends? Did you feel loved enough? I wonder, where was your starting line? And even though I'm asking you all these questions today, the truth is that very few people will actually care. If you walk into a store and need $100 to buy what you want, but you have $80, you're going to be disappointed. If you have $100, you will get what you want. But no one cares if you broke your back at a minimum wage job and it took you a long time to save the money. You are expected to have the money, period. And no one cares if you are taking care of children at home or have dyslexia and it causes you to study twice as long as your classmates in order to pass a class. Your job is to pass the class, period. Overcoming personal challenges and demons is an inward journey and an expansion of the self. Self-esteem says, I can. Pride says, I already have. Personal pride does not need to be shared with others, and it doesn't have to be noticed by others. We all begin at different starting lines. Into this world, we are all thrown. You did not choose it. Your existence precedes your essence, and therefore, where you start is not a reflection of you. Where you start is not your choice, and it doesn't help to complain about it. Your essence grows from your thoughts, feelings, and actions to overcome nature's resistance. Life has no meaning other than the meaning you create. It is your job to find out what you need. As Jim Morrison said, we are born like a dog without a bone. You didn't inherit an identity or value. And that's amazing because you have the power to create your own identity, the power to increase your value, and the power to define yourself no matter where you started from. So let's be honest. Life is like running a marathon in 1979. And I still want to know, where is your starting line? All of us that are bestowed life must run our race, and in one way or another, we are all moving closer to the ultimate finish line. But what are you most connected to? Many people have one foot so deeply planted in the past that they have difficulty making proper decisions in the present, and they don't pursue goals for the future. Each person has to explore their own soul to understand what they are connected to. Socrates said, "The secret to change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." Some have amazing talent and have scratched, clawed, and sacrificed everything to ascend to the top of their field, and yet started with nothing. Some have it easier than others and start with their feet on the starting line, with the highest quality shoes, and having sponsors to back them up. They have a clear path and are already at the front before they start. Some are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Personally, I was born with a plastic spoon in mine, and maybe you were too. While living in Las Vegas, I have seen many millionaire trust fund babies that have no idea what real hard work is. And they like to brag about hitting a triple when they were born on third base. It's easy to be bitter about others in that position, but that's just a distraction from the work needed to improve the self. It's possible for those at the front of the pack to move forward and do well, but it's also possible to lose ground to many others. And yet, not many will notice because they started in such a privileged position. Do you think people at the top always work harder, and they're always smarter, and they're always more deserving than you? And what does this do to your self-esteem? Here's some food for thought. According to the U.S. Bureau of the Census, about 90% of American businesses are family-owned or controlled. Nepotism is normal in American businesses, and while it's not necessarily unethical, it does contradict the belief that employers hire and promote the most qualified candidates for the job. Even professional sports are not exempt from nepotism. About 40% of professional NASCAR drivers have family connections to current or former drivers, or have family connections to the sponsors. What are the chances a driver with the last name of Goodrich or Firestone actually made it to the top level in their field due to their exceptional 1 in a million talent? Much more likely that being an heir to a famous tire company has its privileges. Here's another example. The top 5 colleges that have been cited for grade inflation are Ivy League schools. The average grade at an Ivy League school is an A, which means their grading system lacks credibility. Brown University does not give minuses or pluses, and their grading system doesn't allow for a grade below a C. The school doesn't want any litigation problems from rich, connected, irate parents if their progeny fail their classes. The biggest challenge is to get accepted into an Ivy League school. It's not that difficult of a challenge to pass the classes. Many people are denied from getting an Ivy League education, not because of a lack of intelligence, but because they lack financial resources and connections. There are way too many more examples to cite, so I'll just stop right there on that. In the marathon race, those in the back of the pack have many more challenges. They have to run a longer distance. They are penalized on their time even before they start. They have more people to maneuver around, and they essentially have to run a race just to get to the starting line to begin the race. How many people know the feeling of working twice as hard to end up in the same place as someone else? Or have big dreams, but have been told that the best way to gain a big fortune is to start with a small fortune. But here is the truth and the moral of today's story. This world is not cruel, and this world is not loving. This world is apathetic. The world itself doesn't care at all about your life and how you live it. The only one who needs to care is you. We live on an average rock that orbits the sun at about 67,000 miles per hour, and at the equator we are spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour. We share this rock with almost 8 billion other people. At times we all feel disconnected, insignificant, and small. It's good to remember that the atoms that make up the stars in the universe are in us. We are infinite. We are all given a race to run, and we are all born with challenges to overcome. We don't have the same challenges, but that doesn't matter. It's your job to overcome these challenges. Humans have a 1 out of 400 trillion chance of being born. If you were granted life, and if you're listening to this, obviously you were, then by percentage, you have already passed the most difficult challenge of your life. The universe has given you the chance to reach your full potential before you go back to the universe. No amount of complaining, whining, or crying will improve your life. Victimhood is not the currency for those seeking self-actualization. Full responsibility, accountability, and courage is needed. Don't blame your parents. Only look back long enough to learn something. Then you need to move forward. I'll also bet my last dollar that if your parents hurt you, they were clueless. They were acting out their own traumas. And if they knew better, they would have done better. We are not owned by our parents. They are merely the vessels by which we were given life. It's time to move forward. Stop complaining about your environment. The most important environment is in your own brain, and you are in control of it. Move forward. Stop complaining about what was and start focusing on what is. Move forward. Stop ruminating about what was done to you and start asking why it was done for you. Move forward. Never blame anyone or anything, but always ask, what needs to be done for me to rise above? Finishing the Long Island Marathon at 14 years old taught me many lessons. Number 1, it doesn't matter where you start. What does matter is where you are going and that you are willing to place one foot in front of the other for as long as needed to reach your goal. Number 2, minimal people who do minimal things suffer minimally. Great people who do great things suffer greatly and are better for it. Number 3, the winner in life is the person who confronts the most challenges with dignity, courage, and nobility. And number 4, it's been 40 years since I ran the Long Island Marathon, and I remember it clearly like it was yesterday. A young boy about 5 or 6 years old was standing with his mother at the 21-mile checkpoint. He ran out in front of me, and he gave me a cup of grape juice, and he wanted to know my name. Now, I'm not sure if he did that because I was one of the youngest in the race, and maybe he connected with me somehow, but I do know that he did it. I believe in life it is always good to remember that people are watching and that you never know when you can make a difference or be a role model for somebody. And it also reminds me that in life, sometimes it's the little things that are the big things. Thank you for listening. I am Joe Perroni from the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.